candidates for public office. In addition to principles, what are the guidelines? The 5 C's. First, conscience, a person of conscience, a person of moral integrity, one who is God-fearing, makadiyos, who is pro-life, makabuhay or makatao, respects human rights, is transparent and accountable, and there are no charges or taint of corruption. So we look for candidates who are persons of conscience. For Pope Francis, corruption is a sinful hardening of the heart that replaces God with the illusions that money is a form of power. Corruptio optimi pessima, which means corruption of the best is the worst. And if it is not combated openly, sooner or later, everyone will become an accomplice to it. A person of conscience respects human rights. We say no to extrajudicial killings, no to suppression of press freedom. Also, one who respects the dignity of women. A person of conscience is pro-life, no to abortion, no to divorce, no to death penalty. Again, a person of conscience protects the environment, no to irresponsible mining and logging, no to the increase of coal-fired power plants. And a person of conscience is not tainted at all by charges of corruption. He has no plunder charges. He or she pays taxes, is transparent and accountable. Again, for Pope Francis, corruption prevents us from looking to the future with hope, because its tyrannical greed shatters the plans of the weak and tramples upon the poorest of the poor. The second C in our guidelines would be look for a candidate with competence, kakayahan. What is the educational background of the candidate? How is the health of the candidate in terms of physical, mental, or psychological health? What is the record of service of the candidate in government, if the candidate has already been in public life or in private life? And the candidate should not focus only on popularity or name recall. These are not basis for competence. A person of competence should have sound educational qualifications in terms of schooling and background, should be in good health, physical, psychological. The candidate also should show a track record of service in public office or in private life. And certainly the candidate should not rely on fake news by employing trolls to spread lies and caricatures. In fact, for Pope Francis, in his encyclical Fratelli Tutti, he points out the unhealthy kinds of populism that exploits politically a people's culture, appeals to the bases and most selfish inclinations of certain sectors, and usurps the institutions and laws of the country. A third criterion for choosing candidates is, does the candidate exhibit compassion, kaluoy? Does the candidate show concern for the poor and the marginalized? Is a candidate for social justice laws, like the implementation of agrarian reform, the Fisheries Code, the Indigenous People Rights Act, urban reform for housing especially? Is the candidate for empowerment of the poor versus simply giving out dole-outs? Does the candidate also protect the rights of minorities? And he or she should not be seen as being elitist at all. A person of conscience manifests an option for the poor, especially the marginalized, the minorities like indigenous people or Muslims or other victims of calamities also. And the candidate should support social justice measures like agrarian reform, we said, labor rights, urban housing, ancestral domain claims. A person of compassion also supports the peace process through peace negotiations and addressing the root causes of unrest. Compassion for Pope Francis is meaning good politics combines love with hope and with confidence in the reserves of goodness present in human hearts. A fourth criterion is companions. Who are the supporters and advisors of the candidate? What is their reputation? What is their integrity? What is the political party and platform of the candidate? Is he or she surrounded by political dynasties, both vertical or horizontal? And again, are the companions the invisible social media trolls that disseminate fake news or caricatures? Again, for Pope Francis in Fratelli Tutti, he has this mention about trolls. Politics is something more noble than posturing, marketing, and media spin. These sow nothing but division, conflict, and a bleak cynicism. So, who has the right compassion? Party platform is concrete and realistic with qualified technocrats and advisors. The candidate have companions that are not tainted by corruption or local or human rights violations and is independent of political dynasties, not beholden to political families. This is one image of a political dynasty where husband and wife and child are all part of the local position in public office. Finally, the fifth C for a candidate would be his or her commitment, the political will of the candidate in terms of key principles. What is the candidate's stand on key issues? Is the candidate makabayan? What is his stand on martial law? And the candidate should not be a balimbing or a turncoat that changes political colors out of convenience. So a person with commitment means that they views the martial law period as the darkest era in Philippine post-war history. No to any alternative narrative saying that martial law was the golden age, for instance. The candidate should also be able to defend the sovereignty of the Philippines over its offshore islands and maritime economic zone. Again, this is the situation now vis-a-vis our neighboring state of China. And what is happening in Ukraine might also already been happening here in our offshore islands. So a person with commitment means that the candidate has principles with the 5 M's, makadiyos, makatao, makakalikasan, makabayan, and makakapayapaan. Again, for Pope Francis, human dignity means social friendship and universal fraternity that necessarily call for an acknowledgement of the worth of every human person, always and everywhere. And this is also what we look for in the commitment of candidates for public office.